Welcome to the California Leaders Podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of the visionaries shaping the future of our region. Hosted by Christopher Luna. This podcast brings you conversations with the movers and shakers, driving innovation, leadership, and community impact across California. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a community leader, or simply someone passionate about making the difference, this podcast is your gateway to the insights and inspiration you need to lead and succeed. Get ready to get inspired by the leaders making waves in California and beyond.
In this episode, we welcome Anna Marie Presutti, President and CEO of San Francisco Travel Association. A passionate advocate for the travel and tourism sector, Anna Marie serves on the boards of the U.S. Travel Association and the Bay Area Host Committee. She is also a trustee of the Missouri State University Foundation. She earned her degree in communications at Missouri State and grew up in Kansas City. Anna Marie Presutti became the first woman to serve as president and CEO of the 115-year-old San Francisco Travel Association in September 2024. She has been a tourism industry leader for over 2 decades and previously served twice as San Francisco Travel's board chair and on the Super Bowl 50 Bay Area Host Committee. Anna Marie's career also includes significant leadership roles at Kimpton Hotels, ITT Sheraton, Hilton Hotels, and Sunstone Hotel Properties, where she honed her expertise in hotel operations and sales strategy. Throughout her career, Anna Marie has been consistently recognized for her excellence in hospitality leadership. The San Francisco Business Times named Anna Marie among the 2026 Newsmakers 100 and honored her with the Inspire Award at its Most Influential Women in Bay Area Business 2026 event. Anna Marie was named one of the most influential women in the Bay Area by the San Francisco Business Times and received the American Hotel and Lodging Association's Outstanding General Manager of the Year award. Please welcome Anna Marie Presutti.
Welcome to California Leaders. My name is Rick Gibson. I'm the editor-in-chief of California Leaders magazine, and I'll be conducting today's interview. It's my pleasure to welcome Anna Marie Presutti, President and Chief Executive Officer of the San Francisco Travel Association. Anna Marie is a recognized leader in hospitality and tourism, known for the bold vision, innovative partnerships, and commitment to elevating San Francisco as one of the world's premier destinations. She currently serves as the first female president and CEO in the nearly 120-year history of San Francisco travel, and previously became the first female vice president of the Hotel Nico in San Francisco. Under her leadership, San Francisco continues to experience a strong tourism resurgence, attracting conventions, global events, international visitors, and significant economic investment. Her efforts have helped position the city for a new era of growth, innovation, and global relevance. Today we'll discuss her leadership journey, the future of tourism, the evolving story of San Francisco, and the opportunities ahead for one of America's most iconic cities. Please join me in welcoming Anna Marie Presutti. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very interested in learning more about your story. I know something from what I've seen and read, but I'd love to learn a little bit about you and what brought you to this point. We've already mentioned that you are the first female president for San Francisco Travel Association. And so I'd like to visit a little bit about your own personal journey and what's led you to this moment and some of the challenges and opportunities that you're working on right now in your current role.
Yeah. Well, I started, a long time ago. And my first job out of college was at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. And I was a flight attendant on the company planes, believe it or not. And I was exposed to a lot of leadership with Disney at the time. That's who we were flying around most of the time. And was able to sort of just, when you're in the air and there's only 3 people on a plane, you're kind of together and you're chatting. And it was very insightful for me to be exposed to people in those positions at a very young age. Mm-hmm. And it made a big impression on me.
Yeah, no question. I mean, what an amazing opportunity to be able to just have some time to visit with people that you might not normally.
Yeah, play cards. We played
Oh, wow.
cards together, you know?
Yeah, wow.
Or board games and things like that. Obviously, I mean, this was quite some time ago, so there wasn't, Bluetooth and all of that, where everybody was stuck to an iPhone or an iPad, where, so you actually were forced to converse.
Yeah.
And it was mostly it was just hardly ever about work. It was just about life and what they were doing and what their kids were going through. It was very casual, but for me, just being exposed to the leadership that was, driving Walt Disney World at the time. This was pre the studios at Walt Disney World. It was pre-ESPN. It was pre-ABC, but all of that was in the works.
Yes.
And I was just sort of learning about sort of how those deals were coming together and why it was, what was provoking that. And so I learned a lot just by listening and asking a lot of questions. I was incredibly curious and was so proud to work for that organization. So it was just a great and very unique, I might add, beginning to all of this.
Yeah. That is amazing for that opportunity. But,
Yeah.
not everyone gets
No.
a chance to do that. I've been to Orlando a couple times, but boy, down in Anaheim all the time.
Yeah.
Had my annual passes, raised
Yeah.
our kids part of the time there. We loved going to all of that. And I followed some of the leadership principles that I learned. I read, I think it was called A Work in Progress, Michael Eisner's book,
Yep.
A Work in Progress. And I still use some of those principles. He said the secret to Disneyland's or the Disney park success, I'm probably not quoting it right, but was clean bathrooms. It was, at the end of the day, after a long day and mom and dad have enjoyed great entertainment,
Yeah.
fun rides, good food, good entertainment value. But if they were to go into the restrooms at the end of the night to put their kids in the onesies for the drive home, and the bathrooms were a mess, they would inwardly say, oh, the magic isn't real.
Yeah.
So I would imagine there's some amazing and important principles that you learned on those plane flights that are probably still sticking with you.
Yeah.
Does any come to mind?
It's interesting because I recall, being raised in the Midwest, all of my friends' parents and kids that we grew up with, they were all Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, right? Mm-hmm. So you enter this Disney culture and everybody goes by a first name. And that I remember being very difficult for me because my instinct was to say Mr. Eisner, Mr. Wells, whatever the case was. And, but the one thing that Michael Eisner did, I remember it so well, all the employees who wanted to go, and it seemed like everyone, lined Main Street. And Michael Eisner and Frank Wells started at the top of Main Street, and they shook every single person's hand all the way down.
Really?
We stood shoulder to shoulder. And then they switched sides, and they came back the other side. And I just remember, looking, this was before I was flying, and I just remember thinking, what an exorbitant amount of time that took for them to do that,
Right.
But what an impact it had. And I just think that was, as you mentioned, he was just sort of deep-rooted in these small details that made such a big difference and impact on whether you were a cast member or you were the person who was changing your kids in the bathroom.
Right.
That's why people leave Disney still to this day, and they still talk about how clean the parks are.
Yes.
It's the one thing that everybody talks about, but it is the thing that makes people want to come back. It feels safe, it feels secure, it's clean, it's it's family quality fun. And in fact, I just came up there from down there to Anaheim to here today.
Right.
And last night we had an event, and we went out into the California Adventure, and there was a private viewing area. And I observe so much the people, and all I was watching is just these families and it never ceases to amaze me, just how people will flock to that experience, year after year. And somebody gave me a statistic that, the majority of the people that go to Disney are repeat, like you
Yes.
were saying. They're just repeat guests. And
Yeah.
they've just built an amazing foundation on that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I had mentioned earlier about my daughter, and she just celebrated a graduation.
Yeah.
She's there today.
Oh,
and
is
that is how they're celebrating.
Good for her.
They love to go back, and it's
Yeah.
just a fun time. And it doesn't feel like they've really even ever come to their or reached the limit of what they can charge. People continue
It's
to
fascinating to me, isn't
Right.
it? I mean, working in the business too, I took so much of what I learned at Disney and I was able to apply it in the hotel space. And it's all about surprise and delight. And we still use that phrase at SF Travel, where I
Surprise
currently
and
am. We are showing up in places that will surprise and delight people, aligning ourselves with like-minded brands who bring joy to people, i.e. the Rose Parade. I told you we were in that
Right,
last year.
yeah.
And that's really Disney's secret sauce. Continue to surprise and delight people. And that stuck with me, and through all my hotel years, it's difficult to provide a great guest experience consistently.
Yes.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
You come into work and you've had a bad day at home, or your kids are sick, or whatever the case is, and you have to step on stage, and forget about all that and give that person who's spending hard-earned money a great experience.
Yeah. You mentioned Kansas City or
Yeah.
Kansas, but I just came back.
Missouri. Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, all right. Let me get it right. I did a visit there, I don't know, a couple years ago now, and it was in Kansas City. We were at the Union Station, Grand Central.
sure,
the big train station there, which is
Union
beautiful.
Station.
And down below it was, they had the art of Disney, because
Yeah.
Walt Disney went to art school.
That's right.
There. So much Midwestern influence, values were involved in developing, the Disney experience. And then now I'm hearing we have somebody from that part of the country.
Yeah.
How did you make your way to San Francisco, of all places?
I know. Well, in this business, you sort of get transferred a lot initially. Right out of college, I went to school in Missouri, and right out of college, I went to work at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida, as I mentioned. And from there was transferred actually here to Los Angeles. And I spent about 6 years down in Orlando and then came here and ended up taking a job just down the street here. But opened a hotel in the Glendale area, the Hilton in Glendale, and then came here to the Grand Hotel. And then from here was transferred to Arizona. And then Arizona went to Park City, Utah. But between Arizona and Park City, Utah, there was a 3-month period where I landed in San Francisco and was situated there. And just as I got situated, they transferred me again to Park City. And I went to Park City for the 2002 Winter Olympics. And I was overseeing about 9 properties in Utah. And so was tasked with getting those contracts situated for the Olympics and, working through all that. And then from Park City back to San Francisco, where I've been since just right after the 2002 Winter Olympics.
There's so many different ways I'd love to go into this conversation, but I am interested as I think about what I know about some of our listeners. They are wondering about their careers. How do they advance them?
Yeah.
Is being willing to move part of that?
It was in this industry,
Yeah.
In the hospitality and tourism industry. It was at one point. With every promotion, you ended up having to take another move, it seemed. And I think people got that became very tiring and taxing on especially people with families.
Right.
You're picking up your 5-year-old and then your 10-year-old and moving schools and things of that nature.
That's
and
hard.
That was really difficult. So I think that stopped, because there was this, people wanted quality of life and they wanted their kids to be grounded and, all of the right things, right? So it was at the time, promotions meant you usually had to take a move. And I don't think that's the case anymore in this industry. I always, though, my father worked for Brock's Candy for about 26 years. And that was the same with him. I remember we moved a lot as a family because with every promotion, it went to a different region or a different, spot. So it required us to move. I thought it was fun and fascinating, but I can see where that would be very daunting for particularly a family. I think just leadership now is, people are so consumed with how do I get to the next spot, the next level. And I always just say, just do what you're doing now well. And if you do what you're doing now well, someone's going to pay attention and they'll notice. And also be very clear about what you want to do. Don't be afraid to say and ask, what do you think my next move is? So that you can at least kind of have a path towards where you want to go. But you're not going anywhere if you're not doing the job that you have right now well.
Yeah.
So start with that.
Right. Yeah, that is so interesting because the way we live, the way we work has all changed, certainly post-pandemic, right?
Yep.
Some people are working in the office, some are working remotely at home. I know somebody who has a job, and she lives in Los Angeles. She hotels in a Los Angeles office while working for the New York team.
Yeah.
It's really a strange thing. I wonder, it seems like something is lost, though, with all of that. Some sense of community, some sense of belonging. At the end of the day, some of that has to happen in person, right?
Yeah.
Don't you think?
We pre-pandemic were in the office 5 days a week. And then the pandemic comes and, we couldn't, there was enough ordinances that were put into place in San Francisco where you could only have so many people in the office at
one time.
Yeah, it was something like that. And then, of course, post-pandemic coming out, this city centers were really struggling. And I remember standing in line at a coffee shop, and this woman was, she was standing in front of me, and she just turns and she goes, "Gosh, I really miss my old coffee shop. The one that was down the street." And I was like, "Oh," I said, "Did it close?" During the pandemic, so many of those little small businesses closed. And she says, "Yes." She goes, "That's why I hate coming to work. We're required to be in the office 1 day a week." And I said, "But that's probably why that coffee shop closed." Right. She goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, if you're not here to support it, the deli down the street, the dry cleaners, the shoemakers, the florist that you'd grab a bundle of flowers before you headed home, they're not there because you're not here." And she goes, "God, I never really thought about it like that." It's not always up to someone else. Sometimes you have to be part of the solution. So we came back into our offices 4 days a week. 1 day you can work remote. But I find myself going in, and I think a lot of people do, 5 days a week, particularly the youngest generation, the kids that just got out of college. They want that sense of community. They want to be around. They're thriving and doing so much better because they can ask questions, and they can, get up and walk into my office and be like, "Hey, what do you think about, blank?" And there is that sense of community when you are all in an office together. You're not sitting on a Zoom, or you're not sending somebody an email. I mean, somebody will send me an email and I get up and I walk across the office and I just answer the question. To me, like, I don't...
Oh, I'm sorry. The email came from just down the hall.
Yeah. I'll be on it or whatever. Maybe it's to me directly, or it could be a group of people, and I'll just walk down and plop down in front of somebody and say, let's talk about that. And that didn't happen and doesn't happen, obviously, if you're not in the office and you're not present. And I think also when you're not in the office and you're not around that community, you start to lose relevance because the decisions don't wait for you to come into the office. The decisions are going to happen if you're there or not. And if you're not there, the train's still leaving the station. So I think that the folks that are working remote, they do feel a little bit left out. Now, in some cases, we have remote salespeople that are in market, and there's no way around that. If I have somebody in Chicago, I need them in Chicago to sell.
Right.
I need you there to work that market. But if you live in San Francisco and you represent the city like we do, then you need to be in the city.
Right.
That's where you need to be.
That makes sense, right.
So, and if you're working on a project and you're not in the office, we're not stopping the decision-making process to zoom you in if you're not there. It's just not happening. We need to move very quickly and make decisions, and you should probably be in the room where it happens.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't think we've fully grasped all that the pandemic has done to us.
Oh, no.
We're still with the long tail of that will be
Yes.
with us for
Yeah.
a long time, don't you think?
It's
changed the way we live, the way we travel, the way we work.
Yep. It changed everything.
Yeah.
It changed, I think about the kids who were in high school or college during that time period.
yes.
Like that college experience, what a different experience it was for them versus what it was for, us or the generation before them. So I think, it absolutely has a profound impact.
Yeah, and we haven't fully seen yet what
No,
that
I can't
is.
imagine.
It'll begin to reveal itself in different ways. Think about what you benefited from by just simply being not just in the room, but on the plane where
That's right.
conversations and
Yeah.
you were with leaders when their guard was down, when
Yeah.
they were kind of relaxed.
Yeah.
When you think of mentorship and working with your team, so much of that must happen in person.
It does. I think it's, first of all, having just exposure
Yeah.
and feeling comfortable to just walk in my office and say, hey, did you see the blah, all of that matters. All of it matters. And it's those little firecracker moments that you're having with people. Not everything has to be a stick of dynamite and goes, there can be those little firecracker moments. And I think that it's way undervalued.
I think I will borrow the firecracker metaphor. That's exactly right. It's not just, I need to be at this critical meeting.
Yeah.
Think synergy ideas happen sometimes spontaneously,
Yep.
right? Yeah. No, I do understand that there's real power of being together, and we are still, again, trying to figure out what does that mean for us now that sort of the social contracts have changed around commuting, about working, and being together or being remote. So there's no question. I know it also impacted your world in San Francisco and travel in general.
Yes, it did.
I'll circle back to that in a minute, because I'm very interested in what seems to me to be, I just listened to a podcast this morning where they were talking about how San Francisco has made a huge comeback. And with all due respect to my LA friends, LA is trying to get there too. But
Yeah.
we're even having an election today.
Yeah.
That's questioning how back are we yet,
Yeah.
right? But they were really just saying that there's been a real resurgence or a renaissance, if you will, in San Francisco, and I want to get to that.
Yeah.
But I read in a recent interview once that you noted that leaders today are being asked to navigate business goals, public pressures, civic expectations, and political crosscurrents all at the same time.
Yeah.
Frankly, that seems impossible.
It is impossible to do it all well anyway. I think, you in some cases, and I liken this to working in the hotel, because when you're overseeing a large hotel with food and beverage and operations, and people think of a hotel as, I check in, I check out, I have a housekeeper. Behind, in the back of the house, there's a huge laundry facility that's being executed, and you might have a 550 room hotel with equally as many employees, 500 to 600 employees, and it's a city. It's a small city in the back. And as the general manager, the vice president, you're not flying at ground zero all the time. You've got your sales and marketing, and like I said, food and beverage operations, human resources, engineering, there's all accounting, all of these departments. And, the key and the trick was to sort of try and maintain a 15,000 foot level. And then if one of those departments was struggling, then you get in. But then you fly out, you kind of get in, try to be a problem solver and help with the solution, and then you get out of it and you let your people figure out how they're going to move forward. And that is very similar to what you just described in this DMO space, or destination marketing organization space, because you can't do it all well all the time. So again, maintaining that 15,000 foot level, but then when, the political scene starts to tap you on the shoulder, you kind of get down in there, but you got to get out too. So I oftentimes think that with leadership, you do get pulled in so many different directions, and particularly in tourism and hospitality, your instinct is to always say yes, because that's the business we're in. We're in the business of yes. We're in the business of surprise and delight. We're in the business of trying to please a customer. And the reality is saying no sometimes is actually better. Not just better for me or better for you, but it's just better. You can't do it all. And it is really difficult, I think, in leadership to recognize that I'm not a superhero. I can't do it all. I have to really be specific and intentional with where I'm going to put my energy today.
Yeah. No, I understand that. And then out of nowhere could come an attack on, whatever the issue might be in San Francisco and in Los Angeles. I know that the West Coast and some of my own family will call it the left coast.
Yes.
Right? You've probably heard that.
Yeah.
They'll lob really unfounded even criticisms at times, and so suddenly that's in the news, and you're having to pivot,
right, and defend.
Right.
We defended for a long time, during and post-pandemic, and fortunately, we had some really big events: the NBA All-Star Game, the Labor Cup. We had a new mayor get elected. Then we came out with this year with the Rose Parade float. Then we went straight into Super Bowl, and now we're headed into FIFA. So all of those things put us on the world map, because we were in people's living rooms for all of those events, and they started to see and hear. They saw the beautiful city that we have and live in, and all the icons, the cable cars and the painted ladies and the bridge, and the list goes on and on. But then they started hearing from the broadcasters, I didn't expect this. And it was the same thing that we had been hearing for 3 years prior, that this is nothing like what they said it was on TV. Right. This is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. And then we started talking to more and more customers, and we joined a partnership with United Airlines, where we flew two people out to do site inspections if you had an active RFP to book a piece of business in the city. Because the way I looked, I could talk about it till I was blue in the face, but it really was this whole notion of seeing is believing. And when they came out, they were like, we got it wrong. And yes, you did get it wrong. And here you are. And we've signed more business in the last 2 years than we ever have, just because we got people into the market to see that whatever you were hearing was in fact incorrect.
Right.
So, or seeing was old footage. And it's not to say that we didn't slip and fall and we lost our way a bit. But what that showed is don't ever bet against San Francisco. That's a bad bet.
Yeah.
And people realize that really quick.
Oh yeah. No, we have experienced something similar here, and some of it, as you say, is true. I mean, there are things that are amiss. I mean, we would love to think that we surprise and delight.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes the surprise
Yeah.
is, not what was expected. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a marketing business, right? You're marketing the city, and marketers are expected to make claims.
Yeah.
But they're unverified until you get there and see for yourself.
That's right.
And like you say, seeing is believing. There are some hurdles that you've overcome, and there is a comeback in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's a partnership with the city on this too.
Absolutely.
And that you in your own role are very much involved with that.
Yeah.
My figures may be old, and I don't need to get hung up on figures, but you're looking at a massive amount of guests in the city in a given year, and to the tune of nearly $10 billion worth of business that's into the economy because of tourism.
Yeah.
My numbers may be old, but I'm wondering,
Little old,
what
but
is
that's okay.
what are the partnerships? What is your partnership like with the city itself?
Well, like I said, we have a new mayor who's took office. He's been in office now a little over a year, and he was very steadfast in knowing what needed to be cleaned up, and he also recognized very quickly how the general fund was being fueled, and realized that the TOT tax coming through the hotels was the number one contributor to his general fund. So he figured out, I have to promote and help tourism so that the hotels are fuller, because it was all filtering through that. And, all boats rise in this high tide. So if the hotels are full, the restaurants will be full, and retail will be active, and the turnstiles at the attractions and museums will be more plentiful, and all of that. So it was this trickle-down effect. And he got it very, very quickly, where administrations prior to his took it for granted because we were San Francisco and we'd always been, running at 80 some odd % occupancies, and our daily rates were quite high. And everybody wanted to come to San Francisco. And then it was just like the screech of the brakes hit during the pandemic, and we had to bring that back. So he's done a really nice job, and his administration, of understanding the impact of tourism, and then doing what he needs to do so I can go and do what I do. And that has been this nice partnership. And we've done a couple of town hall sessions together, and we're both singing from the same hymn book, which is great. So I think it's been a really nice relationship and partnership, more importantly than anything. And anytime you have a public official who values your industry, and and that's hard because every industry is screaming for that attention, and we haven't had to scream for attention at all because he's been that invested in it. And so it's just made it's certainly made things easier for us to sell the city. And obviously, the work that he's doing, we've seen great improvements within the city.
Yeah. Seems like it's a dangerous idea to get so comfortable that you think, hey, we're San Francisco, or hey, we are whatever. I would imagine.
Every city does it, though. We never learn from one another. It's so funny.
You have to keep earning it, right?
Yeah, you just have to keep fighting the good fight. And now it's not just these gateway cities that are interesting to people. It is, we're competing, San Francisco, Los Angeles, we compete not with just Vegas and Orlando and New York, but we're competing with Salt Lake City and Indianapolis. And they've all moved to this, come visit these destinations, because there is more than just these giant cities. Get out into the country and see what we have to offer. And everybody's leaning into that. And I was just in Louisville, and I think Louisville is such a great destination. It's small, It's mighty, and they lean into the two things that they're known for, and they don't waver: horse racing and bourbon, and that's it. And they do it, and they do it so well. They're just excellent at that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Know who you are, promote who you are, and do it well.
Right.
And that they do it extraordinarily well.
Yeah, and then the unverified claim is verified.
Yeah.
And then neighbor tells neighbor, friend tells friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, my eldest daughter is traveling the country over several years to go to every Major League Baseball park. She's checking them off her list. She has a little binder of photos and things.
Oracle Park in San Francisco is truly the best. I can tell her that.
Yes. Well, she's been there.
Okay.
Now, heads up. We're a Dodger fan family, but we could still be friends. No, it's a beautiful park right there on the water like that. Oh my gosh, it's just lovely.
I think anytime you can go to a ballpark and you can look out and you know exactly where you are, because the ballpark is part of the fabric of the city. It drives me nuts when I get to a ballpark, and it could be in any city USA. It wouldn't matter, and you don't know where you are. But when you're in a ballpark and you know where you are, and it is become part of the fabric, and it's really special.
And I love that you can walk to that ballpark.
Oh, it's so great.
Yeah,
it's so great.
No, I think it's a beautiful park, and I've enjoyed games there, even when we lost to the Giants.
Yeah, well, that's not happening these days so much, is it?
No, right. But we'll see.
Mr. Otani has kind of cleaned that whole thing up, hasn't he?
I think Buster Posey's going to turn it around.
Yes, he's an icon.
He's an icon. He is a... If you love baseball, you love Buster. So
so much so, my dog's name is Buster Posey.
Okay.
So there it is.
Perfect. Yeah, well... back to partnering with the city for just a minute.
Yeah.
You all work through something or have to deal with something that we do here. We live in two of the most expensive places in the world to live, right?
Yes.
There are initiatives and policy decisions being made around minimum wage and a living wage for tourism workers and all that kind of thing. I'm assuming you're involved in trying to figure that all out, negotiate all that, make that work, because you do need people who can represent the city and still live in the city or near the city, right?
Yeah.
It's a real challenge, isn't it? Because it makes the attraction of of getting an event to a convention center expensive. I know it's the case here. I doubt that it's an intractable problem, but it feels like it's a pretty big issue.
It can be, and I will tell you, the way we sell against that, I guess, is maybe the best way to say it, is you might spend a little bit more when you bring a convention to the city. But we can demonstrate that you'll also have more attendees come, because people want to come to San Francisco.
Yes.
So your attendee count is going to go up, which means your revenue stream will also go up. So yes, you might pay more, but we can also show you very clearly with lots of history with other programs that you will make more as a result of putting your program in San Francisco. So, and that isn't just a pitch. That's actually true.
Right.
Now, with regards to the expense of living in a city, I think that's what makes San Francisco so great is, it can be really expensive. Find me a city that's not really expensive.
Right.
But there's also so much to do that is completely free. And that's the joy of living in California, where the weather is amazing all year round.
Right.
So you can, go to all of the parks, and there's so many free, whether it's exhibits or places to go and see and explore, to go in our city and take a walk down Lombard Street, or go to Fisherman's Wharf, or take a trolley or a cable car up and over the hill. Like, those things don't cost a lot of money to do it, but your experience is still equally as rich. So I think, and we have everything from the most luxurious hotels down to really nice hotels that are
Yeah.
a better, maybe better for your wallet. So I would say that as long as you have diversity in what you're offering for all income levels, you'll be okay. It's when you don't have the diversity
Right.
and people don't have things to do that it's going to cost them way too much. But that's the great thing about our city, and people can come and they don't have to spend. You can go to a great ramen shop, for
Right.
hardly anything. Go into Chinatown and get some great dim sum, and that's not going to cost you a ton of money. So I think you can do it on the way high end, or you can do it on whatever budget that you've allocated for yourself.
Yeah.
You're going to there'll be something great for you to do and experience.
Yeah, I think the last time I was there, I had a great day. Golden Gate Park, Japanese Tea Garden,
Yep.
DeYoung Art Museum. Is it DeYoung?
Yeah.
And then a visit to Amoeba Records.
Yeah.
And then back to the hotel, and we were exhausted. We had just had a great day.
Yeah, and you didn't spend a ton of money.
No, and it was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
And so you're right. There's a high end part of San Francisco. There is a bohemian type part of
Yeah.
San Francisco. Frankly, there's really no place quite like it. It really is amazing and a wonderful place to visit. And there's just no question about that. A lot of cities will say they're iconic. Well, they may have iconic elements, but the city itself is iconic.
Well, even when I was talking to one of the folks that was here earlier, and I said, San Francisco's small. It's 7 miles by 7 miles. And he was like, what? And I'm like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
It's 49 square miles. It is not a large city, and it's under 1 million people. It behaves like a large city. It feels very European to people when they come.
does,
It
yes.
has this, it's very walkable, and there's really nowhere you can go that you can't walk to, or there's great public transportation there.
Right,
That's the
right.
other thing that makes it so easy. And now, San Francisco is one of the only places that you can take the oldest form of transportation, which is a cable car.
Yes.
And share the roadway. Right next to you will be the newest form of transportation, which is a driverless vehicle.
Right.
So they share the same roadway. The irony is incredible, but
Yes.
it is really special. And it's ironic to me. We were talking about the Zooks and the Waymos of the world, but those have become an attraction in and of themselves.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, on the way in today, I looked in front of me, behind me, beside me. There were no other drivers. There were people in the back seat, but Waymo was everywhere down
Yeah.
FIFA is a big deal, World Cup.
Yep.
Tell me about San Francisco, what it's doing. I'm interviewing, by the way, the artist who did the poster
Oh, you
for
are?
the Bay Area.
Oh, that's so great. He
yeah.
came into our offices, and
Oh,
I had a
yeah.
lovely photo shoot with him. He was great.
Yeah. Tell me about what's going on, what's happening in the Bay Area with FIFA.
So we
Because
have
it's on us, right?
Yeah, it's coming. It's
Yeah.
like a week or two away.
Right.
Well, here's what's interesting, and it's sort of the firecracker dynamite analogy once again, but FIFA will behave very differently than Super Bowl. Super Bowl comes in and it's like, boom, it's one giant stick of dynamite, and it lasts for, 1 week, and then that's that. But FIFA spreads out over the course of a month or so-ish.
Right.
And so it's little firecrackers more than anything. So we'll have a lot of activations in the city for fan fests and things like that. The game itself will take place down at Levi Stadium.
Yes.
Or actually, I think what are they calling them? They changed all of the names of the stadiums to the city's names. So they won't be Levi Stadium. It'll say, San Francisco or Santa Clara. I don't know what this is going to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, same as here.
Right.
So, the games will be down there. People will come into SFO most likely as a gateway airport, spend some time in San Francisco, and then head down and see the game or games. So I think, we obviously tourism has not had the the positive impact that we were hoping for with FIFA. That's a lot of geopolitical stuff happening.
Right.
There's a lot of
There's
noise
a lot in that mix,
space.
isn't there? Yeah, we have the same experience here, right?
Yeah, and every FIFA city is
Is that right?
across the country. Yeah, that's not just here. It's everywhere. We all kind of went wonk wonk wonk, you know. But what happened in San Francisco is we didn't depend on FIFA. We booked several back-to-back citywide conventions throughout the month of June. So FIFA was the cherry on top, or to be the cherry on top. And I still think it will be.
Yeah.
I still think fans will come and they'll experience the city. They probably won't stay for as long as we originally intended them or would hoped that they would. But that's okay because we had already laid down some really nice programming, and then we'll experience, the FIFA crowds as they come and go.
Yeah, it's sort of like, oh, by the way, here's our convention, here's our event, here's our whatever, and there is,
Yeah.
Yeah, I recall, what was it? Oh, it was the Salesforce, the annual Salesforce conference. And I was amazed. There was sod on streets.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, they had turned a lovely part of the city into a park.
Yes.
And it was amazing. And the conference was great.
Yep.
It was important. It was well done. All of that. And then, oh, by the way, Bruno Mars is playing, and we're going to go out for that. And I was just amazed all that you could do. I mean, it was not hard to say yes.
Right.
To, because you have all these options to go to. You have a limited budget of what can you spend your money on to take the team, or to, what conferences you're going to go to. That was a not to be missed. And it wasn't just Salesforce, which was awesome, but it was all that you could do.
Yeah.
And the way you could, and we were in hotels like right above where it was happening. And
I
it was an
think
amazing visit.
San Francisco is sort of in the business of yes, yes and not in the business of no but.
Yeah. I think that's great. Well, I want to, as we kind of wrap up here, I'd like to put you back on that plane.
Yeah.
With the leadership of Disney.
Yeah.
Some of them were no longer with us, right?
Yeah.
I think we lost Frank Wells.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
But, there were those nuggets, either the way you were treated or something that was said. What would you say is one or two leadership principles today that probably root to ideas, conversations, things you learned from a plane trip like that?
One thing, and it's stuck with me forever, is this. It's a great saying. I don't know if I heard it on the plane, but I certainly saw it demonstrated, and that was, you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion.
Oh, yeah.
And I think leaders, really effective leaders, do a lot of observing and listening. And then you do a lot of speaking and, collaborating and things of that nature. But I think everyone thinks just because you're the leader that you're the person who talks the most. And ironically, you are the person who should be listening the most. And if you're effective, you do. I think the other thing I learned, and from a sales, I came up in this business through the sales side of the business. And I remember once being on the phone with a customer and really talking through this program and selling this program. I was selling against another big branded hotel, and my director of sales at the time, she walked in, and do you remember the cover of the Rolling Stone magazine with the tongue?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah. So she had sticky notes that had that picture on it.
Yeah.
And she took the sticky note and she put it in front of me when I was on the phone, and she wrote, "Bite your," and then she pointed.
Wow.
And that was like, because I didn't need to sell. I was like overselling it. And sometimes, as a salesperson, you just puke everything out,
Yes.
And instead of just maybe asking a couple of really good qualifying questions and then answering the questions that need to be answered versus, talking about stuff that's irrelevant, frankly. So those were the 2 key things that I've taken away. Bite your tongue and then obviously use it in proportion.
I love that. No, I am not a salesperson, even though in one way or another, if Daniel Pink is right, we're all selling something.
Yes,
right?
That's 100% true.
Yeah, that's a great book, by the way. It's To Sell is Human.
Yeah.
Daniel Pink. I am not that naturally, but I've been involved in things where I've had to make a pitch and try to get somebody to respond the way I want them to. And I remember one time getting similar advice, not as good as the little sticker and bite your tongue, but I had a sales guy tell me I had already gotten agreement, and I kept talking.
You just kept selling, yeah.
And he said, on the drive home, don't buy back the vacuum cleaner. You've already sold it, don't buy it back.
Yeah.
And that's really wise. It's like, okay, know when to speak, know when to listen, know when to engage.
Yeah.
I don't want to paint too broad a brush here, but I do think a lot of the corner offices, the CEOs, they have to be good at that to get the job in the first place, right? To step in front of a board to get hired, or bosses or whatever. But somewhere underneath there's got to be another kind of person that is not just simply presenting themselves, but is representing an idea or a team.
A vision.
And a vision, yeah. How you have a team of people who work for you?
I do, yeah.
Not just in San Francisco, but all over.
Yeah,
right.
so DC, New York, Chicago.
Yeah, yeah.
Remote.
If I were to ask one of them what they thought your leadership style was, what do you think they would say?
Oh, I think they would say that very, very commonly you would hear them say, she says what she means and she means what she says. It is very rare somebody will walk out of a meeting with me and go, God, I wonder what that was all about, or I wonder what she meant. Like, there's
no ambiguity.
No. And you always know where you stand with me. I also think they would say that I am really tough, but incredibly fair. But I have a friend who says, if you want fair, buy a dog, name it Fair. That's fair. So I always laugh. I always hesitate to say the word fair because I always think of him saying that. But yes, very, very fair and practical.
Yeah.
And not afraid. I'm definitely not afraid.
Yeah.
Because I always look at it, you're not going to break anything. We're not going to break anything. There's so many systems and things in place that it's not going to break. Like I would leave the hotel for vacation and I'm like, it'll be fine. Nobody's going to break anything. Decisions, you might make the mistake and make the wrong decision, but you can pivot out of it. That's part of the process. And I think there was this time where everyone was so afraid to make a decision because they were afraid it was going to be wrong. I am not fearful of making the wrong decision, because if it is wrong, then all right, we'll learn from that, and we just change. We just move differently. We behave differently. We implement something differently. It's not the end of the world to make a mistake. In fact, it's probably good that you do.
Right. Pivot, move on, own it, pivot,
own it, just
move
go.
on. Right?
It's not a big deal.
Yeah, right.
Happens all the time.
I'm wondering, we mentioned earlier that you're the first female to be in the position you're in right now. To those who listen to our podcast or who are watching the podcast, who are emerging leaders, female leaders, what would you say about the challenges that are still in place there? I don't want to lead. There may not be any, but I assume there are. But what does that mean, and what advice do you give to some of the young women who are emerging in whatever field they're in?
Well, I don't think being a female leader anymore is unique. Now, when I first started, it was incredibly unique. But now, I just came from this meeting and I look at Orlando, New York, Chicago, Seattle, Nashville, San Francisco, all female CEOs. Now, there was probably a time when there was, one or two of those folks in the room, and it's not uncommon anymore. I remember being one of the I was the first and only female executive with Nikko Hotels International. It was a Japanese-based company, Japanese. It was based in Japan. It was founded in Japan. Until the day I left, I was still the only senior female.
So some cultural things at play.
Yeah,
there,
it was kind of funky, but I mean, I found it easier, honestly, because, they didn't really know what to do with the female. That was a cultural thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's to my advantage,
Good for you, yeah.
But I think now it's just, thank God we've gotten to the place that we are. I think, it's not unusual to see female leadership. I think the one area that you don't see as much of it is in that tech space.
Yes.
But certainly, in a lot of other industries, it is not unusual to see female leadership.
Yeah. So it's a good time for aspiring
It's a
leaders,
good time.
female leaders to say, I see a spot for me and I want to aim for that.
It's that, and it's just, again, I kind of go back to the, keep your head down, do what you're doing well, and you're going to be fine. Someone will notice. And I lived by that, and someone did notice, and it happened to be a Japanese man. So I always say I'm here because a man who was in charge of the division at the time said she's the right person, So, you think about that was a huge leap. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that room.
In that conversation.
Right? Can you imagine? We want a loudmouth, blonde, Italian female to lead the organization. So Here I am.
Yeah. Well, it's been delightful visiting with you, and I appreciate you letting us have kind of a broad conversation
Of course,
about your work and about your leadership journey. I know our listeners will enjoy that. One thing that stands out through this conversation is your belief that great cities do not simply recover, they reinvent themselves.
Yep.
You've told us great stories about go for it as a leader, try to make it work. Just don't be bashful. If you make a mistake, move on. You have brought with you some of your Midwestern values in arguably one of the most amazing, progressive, cutting-edge cities that there is. We know that through your leadership at San Francisco is writing a new chapter built on innovation.
Yep.
Culture, hospitality, and global opportunity. You've got big things ahead in San Francisco. Yep. It has been a delight that you have joined us today, and I appreciate that. And I want to thank our viewers and our listeners for joining this episode of California Leaders.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the California Leaders Podcast, hosted by Christopher Luna. We hope you find our conversation as inspiring as we did. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us bring more of the content you love. And be sure to follow us on social media for updates, behind-the-scene content, and to join the conversation. Until next time, keep leading, keep innovating, and keep making a difference.